Hey there, and welcome to CREATE+CO podcast. I'm Christina York, co-founder and principal at CREATE+CO Architecture and Interior Design Studio. As a workplace alchemist and advocate, I'm here to be your guide through the art of designing spaces where people truly work, live, and thrive. With over 25 years experience in human-centered design, planning, and leadership, I'll be breaking down the complex ecosystem of workplace culture and employee well-being into bite-sized actionable insights. Each episode, I sit down with industry leaders, experts, and trailblazers to unpack the complex ecosystem of workplace dynamics. Whether leading a team, running a business, or simply trying to improve your own workspace, this podcast is for you. So tune into CREATE+CO as we discover the power of design to transform how we work, live, and thrive. Welcome to CREATE+CO podcast. Today, I am joined by Chon Nguyen, CEO of Nugentek, co-founder of FusionPrep, and partner at Proper House Group. Your work spans technology, hospitality, and entrepreneurship, which I think is what makes this conversation so interesting. And you have ventures that range from workplace to hospitality. So there's quite a range there. And restaurant operations, back of house systems, multi-unit food businesses. There's all kinds of things that you do, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So you and I are both involved in a lot of things around Tampa Bay, Economic Development Council, and so that's been a great experience for us. And what I really respect about you is you're not just building companies, you're building experiences, and we'll get into a little bit of that, whether that's through, these different avenues, the technology, hospitality, and the community. And I know you're super involved in the community, and I really appreciate that too. So thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Coming today. And we are on location at Alter Ego, one of your establishments, and we're kind of on the brink of a really big weekend. So before we jump into anything else, tell me a little bit about how that feels. And you started to talk about it a minute ago, but we have a big weekend. We have Gasparilla Music Festival and probably 15 other things happening right in downtown. And what does that feel like for you in this business and these two restaurants that you have here in the middle of it all?
Yeah, it's exciting. Of course, we love to have people around the spaces and in the spaces. I think we're all figuring out this growth together. I think anytime there are, a lot of things going on downtown, traffic patterns change. It's challenging, I think, for everyone to navigate, but we figure it out and welcome everyone in, and it's great to have activity down here. So
the bartender was stocking up all sorts of things, getting ready for what
ready.
Potentially is going to be a much busier night and weekend than normal.
Yep.
So that's exciting. Well, cool. So there's lots to do this weekend, but let's kind of take a step back a little bit. Your path spans, like I mentioned, hospitality, tech, entrepreneurship. Those are kind of some main things that I wanted to talk about. And what's the through line for that, for you, and what pulled you into building these businesses? And this, I know you've been called a serial entrepreneur too.
I have been, yeah, whatever that means. I think entrepreneurship was always something that I was interested in. Growing up, I, followed Bill Gates, and technology was, I think it was pretty clear early on that was going to be my path. And I started always had a love for it, then started making a little money. And so I knew that was going to be a career path that was likely going to work out for me. I didn't go to college, and I think I knew sort of at the end of high school that that wasn't going to be for me. And so I kind of knew that I was going to have to work hard as a, maybe taking that different path that some of my friends were taking. And thankfully I found something early on that didn't feel like work, and was able to, really get into it and apply myself, and it worked out well. And I think the journey has been just, being open to, new ideas and new things. I don't think in high school, I don't think if you would have told me then that I was going to be owning restaurants or owning a software business too, I'm not sure that, that would have been on my radar. But it's really about, listening to what people need, and following your passion at the same time, and being flexible and open to going down paths, right, and exploring. And that's what I've done. And
Well, I think that's one of the most, one of the traits that makes you the most successful is that, the openness, being willing to try things, right? And you did have success. I won't say right out of the gate, but you did have something. What was that, kind of that invention that you had shortly after high school that started all of this?
Yeah, well, it was a slow growth. I think as many entrepreneurs know, I feel like that, one of the big milestones that you have is hiring you're a one person show, and you hire somebody to help you, and that is like a huge step, right? Figuring out how you're going to support that other person and
Yeah.
growth behind that. And so that was the IT business, and at the time, now we are a managed IT provider, which is recurring revenue and contracts. And so that structure allows for, predictable revenue. And at
Right.
that early on, that was not the case. So we were charging, hourly, and finding projects and performing the work. And so once I kind of cracked that code of the recurring revenue, that really allowed the predictable revenue allowed for growth. And so that managed IT business was going good. And we started doing some work in the hospitality vertical in IT space. And then I started the software business that, presented itself as a need, and then
Yeah.
got involved in the restaurants too. So owning them. So
So that was the gateway that you kind of got on the IT side of restaurants. And then did you peek around the corner and say, well, what's going on around the front and the rest of the back of house?
Yeah, I think, you get a front row seat to all of these different, when we do outsourced IT, we get a front row seat to all sorts of different businesses, and you get ingrained deeply
Yeah.
in their business. And so a
Yeah.
lot of times we're reporting to finance, but ops is a very important role. And so you get to touch cross-functionally across different businesses, which has always been interesting to me. And so I was working with a lot of chain restaurants and people that were built, we were built in the early days. I was flying around the country, kind of pulling cable and putting in point of sale for 20 restaurants a year, 30 restaurants a year. And so I was always on the road, and I would just watch them open these restaurants and then operate them. And then, there's when you're doing something wash, rinse, repeat, and building a bunch of them, it's sort of, is very follows a formula. And
Hmm.
then, and so seeing that, I think, was interesting. And then I went to Rooster and the Till and saw that that was not a chain restaurant, and fell in love with what they were doing. And that was really kind of I think what opened my eyes to, really delivering a very curated, high touch experience, because it really wasn't about the masses. It was a 30-seat restaurant
Yeah.
at the time.
It's
So
a much more elevated experience. And I think, to your point, like the entrepreneurship, and then also, in design, and we kind of get the same front row seat to everything. You have to learn, what your business does, how you're doing it, what's your process, what are the different phases, and yeah, everything from, how's your IT work to,
yeah,
how's your marketing, producing their marketing material and all. And I think it is super interesting. And I think you then also got this front row seat to the education of it, right? So you're seeing what they did that they shouldn't have done. You're seeing like you're doing this
absolutely.
rinse and repeat where you're also like, all right, but I'm also seeing how they could have done it better and how I could maybe do it. And then you get to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And I love Rooster and Till. And I think when it opened, it was definitely a new concept for Tampa. I mean, this
Yes.
is before we had all of these other awesome concepts
Yes.
come to town. I
13
mean,
years
this is
ago now. Yeah.
13 years
Yeah.
ago. That's kind of crazy to
Yeah.
me that this time has flown so much. But so that was exciting. And I'm glad you became a part of that. And then, now you've come on to some others. And so knowing that, like you've spent a lot of time in the restaurant world, and, aside from just kind of showing you like how the operations work and all, what else has that hospitality taught you about people, that you still carry into everything today?
Yeah.
It is a people business.
Yeah, very much so. There was now the kind of Bible that everyone follows is Unreasonable Hospitality. Before that, there was a book, Setting the Table, by Danny Meyer that I had read before I got involved with Rooster and the Till. I read a lot and it popped up on my radar, but it was very hospitality kind of restaurant focused and customer experience. And so that was an interest of mine, and how to apply that to what we were doing at the time in technology. And so I think, again, that openness is what I try to always focus on. And so a lot of disciplines I just take across all the different businesses, and certainly hospitality is a through line. And I mean, making people, focusing on how you're making someone feel is something that runs through what we deliver at Nugentek, obviously what we do with the restaurants and the software business too. It's just having that empathy and intentional focus on service delivery and everything that you do, and how you treat your people too. So our internal team members as well.
Oh,
but we're always talking about it.
It's always about the people.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting as we've been through that too. I mean, very early on we established this hospitality mentality as we designed even offices. We were probably some of the early, not even early adopters. We were kind of the ones pushing the envelope years ago, 20 years ago, and we were younger designers. But it's such an important aspect of it is like hospitality is servicing people and making them feel welcome, and it's a home away from home typically, and all of those traits that people want to see in a space, and trying to get corporate spaces and other types of spaces and retail and everyone else to realize that that's where it starts.
Absolutely.
It's just, it has to be, this feeling like I'm here, I'm welcome. And, thank you for paying attention to me. And not until COVID, I think, really accelerated that.
For
I don't
sure.
know that it was necessarily the trigger, but it definitely accelerated a lot of those discussions. And I think that's kind of been a lot of what's been spurred on a lot more of the growth of retail, a little bit of retail, but also the hospitality that's happened lately, right? And we were so fortunate here to not really close fully down and then to open quickly, that we were able to accommodate all of this growth and, the projects that you've been working on today, right? I mean, so it's been really interesting. You're constantly balancing that, though, the experience and efficiency.
Yes.
So how do you think about that tension as you scale the business, as you scale technology, and or as you scale, the hospitality concepts that you're working on?
Yeah. Very hot topic now across all of the businesses with AI, especially. I think, having a technology background, to me, when I apply that to hospitality, I think, and really what we do at Proper House Group of being such a high touch, detail, driven in everything that we do, I think our approach here is really for technology to be sort of invisible to the guest. And so, we are not operating, super high volume places. So I think things that you're seeing out there like kiosks and AI, phone attendants and, pay at the table or handheld ordering, those are all things that I think certainly, will operationally impact the business. I think being thoughtful about how the guest perceives that and experiences it, I think is very important to us. So we're probably slower to deploy that guest facing technology here, potentially to our detriment. But I think those first principles and staying true to who we are and the experience we want to provide, I think we'll always be very thoughtful about that. Now, behind the scenes, we use it a lot around data, guest intelligence, things that drive the business and don't necessarily impact or touch the experience. I would say we're pretty mature there. On the technology side, we're obviously having tons of conversations with our customers about AI and how it impacts their business and their teams. And it's still very early on, I think, for everyone. And it's sort of at the peak of that hype cycle, of the technology hype cycle, and everyone's figuring out what it means and, for their business and how best to deploy it. And we're trying to be a part of that conversation and make sure we drive it forward. And internally, I would say we're bleeding edge, right? We're a bunch of nerds that we can hack things together and be a little messy, as we figure things out internally. And so we have fun with it too. And it's a great time.
Well, I think it's smart to, to stay bleeding edge, especially behind the scenes. But also, I don't think it's to your detriment personally. I have experienced, Rooster in the Till, Ash, which, just there a couple weeks ago. And I love the experience. And I think that's important to maintain because I think in the world of AI and everything so technology forward, people, us humans, still
Yes.
appreciate having that human touch, and the way that you deliver, you know, plate after plate, and just the process of it. I mean, I love that, and I know that everybody that's enjoying that, is on in the same boat because that's what you miss. I mean, that's what you miss when you're in front of your computer all day, or you're at home working, or they come out to have that human interaction, and so
we're losing it slowly, I think, across everything, and so for us to stay.
So this is the place where we can keep it, right? Yep. It's always around the table, whether whoever's table it is, right? I think things always happen around the table, whether it's a restaurant or home. So I can really appreciate that. You touched on a little bit already, it's like scaling without losing the human element. So I'm glad to hear, you're kind of finding that balance and, making things that are much more efficient on the backside helps you to have more time to spend in the client, front face, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's a really smart way to do it. Is there any other technology, that you've been looking at or anything that you can share that you guys have been playing with in the background that might be adding value or that you've seen other people let get in the way of what they could potentially be doing?
Yeah, I think I think most of the time when I'm seeing it out there like deployed, it probably makes sense for the for their brand. I think if you have a QSR concept that has a line, a kiosk, might make sense. McDonald's, I think all the guest facing technology in the world makes sense there. For us, I think it's really just that data, guest intelligence. We're connecting our systems together. So when someone comes in, if they miss their birthday, are we collecting data from LinkedIn? You don't want to be too big brother, but like, are you collecting data from LinkedIn or Google and just, being able to provide that little piece of hospitality, that surprise and delight. And so we're doing some of that. But yeah, it's mostly process improvement and getting the right information to our people in a timely manner so they can make decisions that are important to the business. So.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So you've been a part of a lot of these spaces to bring people together. Do you see community as something that brings people together naturally, or is it something that needs to be intentionally designed?
I mean, this better. I think the space matters a lot, right? They have to feel something when they come in and feel welcome and like they can be comfortable there and be open to community and connection. And so I think it starts with that, right? You want to walk in and have it feel welcoming. I think from a programming perspective, we try to make sure that we're inclusive and, this is a very music focused space, and so making sure that we kind of cross genres and timelines and styles, and we're very thoughtful about that to make sure that something resonates for folks. But yeah, I think especially like we said, now with the way things are becoming less personal, more digital, I think you have to be really thoughtful about that connection. And I think Tampa does a great job of getting rooms together and, and we're still able to small enough where we're still able to have kind of those really, great curated rooms of different business sizes and, maturity levels. And that's something that I cherish and like, and think is really important for our region. I think it's unique.
I agree. We're not everything to everybody, Right, but we also, I think, to your point, we have an opportunity, and I'm looking at, the curated shelves behind us, and the records and things, and we do have an opportunity that we can, gather different communities and, bring rooms together,
Yep.
the people that have, a lot in common, and, I think that's important. I think you kind of have to be a little bit more specialized, to bring those the smaller kind of sub communities together, right? Because, otherwise you don't find your tribe,
That's
or
right.
the other way. So you find your tribe around music. Like, what's tonight? What's tonight's music focus?
Tonight I think we're just it's like the hits. Last night we had a gentleman that has a series how sunset sounds, and he has a day job and has been very focused on his DJ career, and he has traveled nationally to do it, and he plays this room and around town, and
Nice.
to watch him kind of grow his following and support that has been great, and he's been great to us, so it's a good partnership.
Oh, that's fun. And see,
Yeah,
you get to foster more
for
communities. You're doing
sure.
so much more than you think.
Yeah.
Um, so kind of as you're going through this, I want to talk about leadership for just a minute because you've grown across a lot of ventures and different types of businesses, but through it all, what does that done to your leadership styles has evolved, from the one guy, that had to hire one employee, to get
Yeah.
things going to now being a leader in multiple businesses and multiple, verticals, really. What does that look like for you? And
It's
especially in the
been,
market now.
yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a hard journey. Growth is hard. I think, not having no formal education. I didn't work for, any large companies. I worked, for the Y when I was in high school, and Circuit City for a
You learned a
year
lot at the
out
Y.
of high school. Yeah, and so I didn't really have, any experience to pull from, and so I read a lot. I obviously a lot of on the job training. One of the most important things I did was get involved in peer groups. So
Yeah.
I was in Vistage for 7 years with other CEOs of different sizes and industries, and that was I would say a game changer for me. CEO Council has been great. The room,
Mhm.
where you're with other folks that are going through the same challenges and problems that you are.
Peer
Um,
groups. Yes, huge.
yes, yeah,
Comparing your wins and losses and
yeah. Partners have been, great in some cases, not great in other cases along the journey. But it certainly having somebody to, um, you know, going through the process with and being shoulder to shoulder with them, because I mean, as you know, it can be very um, lonely. They say it's lonely at the top. It's true. I mean, you have a lot of sleepless nights, and you're responsible for
yeah.
other people, and it's
You're
not
responsible
something
for families,
for sure.
and that
Yeah,
hits really hard in the middle of the night,
yeah.
because yes.
And you don't know. I mean, I think unless you have been through it, or I mean, it's hard if you haven't done it. I'm not sure people understand
No, I don't think they do.
what it's like.
But no, well, that's great to hear, and I, I'm familiar with all of those groups that you talked about, and I will say that that's probably where I have been, and I have been in corporate settings too, but I feel like, you do get a lot more when you're in just, a group of your peers where, you're sharing the struggle, right? And here's what worked and what didn't. And is there anything that maybe worked that worked for you early on that maybe doesn't work anymore now, or anything that you've just learned specifically, that has taken time, to kind of come to?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're always learning, managing people. I think that when the business is at there is that saying that the people that got you here might not get you there,
Mhm.
and so understanding and appreciating um, you know that has been important, I think, and just being understanding those different phases and cycles, and things kind of ebb and flow, right? You're in growth mode. That's kind of wartime, and high velocity and sense of urgency all the time, and you're making changes, and yeah, it's a roller coaster, and the only way to do it, I think, is to learn, and that gives you the experience. And the next time anything happens, you have that experience to draw on. But
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
yeah.
It is a roller coaster.
Yeah.
So talking about our community in Tampa Bay, what excites you the most about the market right now and the things that are happening, especially for, entrepreneurs and operators like you?
Just the growth, I think. I mean, welcoming new people, new businesses to town. We get to see that at the EDC. Obviously there's just so much development happening across neighborhoods on both sides of the bridge, and placemaking, and how that all is going to shape out, I think will be interesting. We're very early here to Water Street, and grateful to be a part of that. I think we learned a lot, and so as these other neighborhoods come up, I think figuring out what makes sense for us from a growth perspective here, I think is important. At Nugentek, we are always looking to work with businesses that are expanding or moving here from a technology and infrastructure standpoint, and so that's nothing but up and positive for us. So that's exciting.
So you're probably seeing a lot of growth on that side of it.
We are.
The increase of businesses and all that are coming to town.
Yeah.
And we're just getting started, I feel like.
I think
There's
so,
a whole nother wave coming, which is great. It's exciting to be a part of it. I feel like we're big, but also we're a small enough community, that there's enough for all of us to go around in all ways, and we love being involved in these projects, and
they're so long term, right? I mean, I think like the scope of them is going to carry us for years, likely. So
yeah, it's pretty exciting. So we're sitting here at Alter Ego, just and I'm curious, you touched on this a little bit, but is there anything you add, like how operators read a space, and what's the first thing you notice? Because we're creative place, so it's not just about the space, it's about the experience of it. But when you are talking about the space itself, what do you notice first when you come into a restaurant? Now that you've been in thousands of them and, are experiencing your own, what are some things you look for or notice?
Now, being an owner, I think operationally, I always look at like, you can always tell if if a space was designed for operations, right? And you learn things, here, there's things we would change, right? But, sometimes you can just tell like, oh man, that was like a incredible miss, and likely very painful for them every day, and so you feel for them when you see that when you go. I think I was talking to somebody else about this, and it's you forget sometimes. It's not like in an office where you might have some customers come in. Here we have 500 people a night come through this very small place, and but for us, it's our office, our work, right? So we're here all the time, and so you still have people that come through the door and see the space, and are you get that first wow, and sometimes I think just taking a minute to watch them experience the space for the first time is really cool if they're in from out of town, and we forget all the time just because we're here, so that's really fun. And I think that's being on both sides. So, working in the corporate spaces where we're doing technology, people consume the space and use the space in a very different way than a hospitality environment, right? So that contrast is fun to look.
And they're both workplaces still. So you're still, and we come up against this too. And when you're designing a space, and it's just the ratio is a little different, right? It's, it's mostly workplace versus guests, and then, hospitality is the opposite. But in both cases, you're still designing for someone's workplace.
Absolutely.
And making sure that they can function. Like you said, just operationally, ooh, that was a miss. How could that clearance be there? That's a terrible, workflow. And, so it's all kind of the same mentality to think about how it's going to function. And then, of course, accommodating the volume of guests, making sure that your furniture is going to last,
Absolutely.
And that all the finishes are not going to be broken down after the first week, that people have been in there. And so, it has its own set of challenges. But you also get to have a lot more fun with
sure.
it too, so I appreciate that. And we love doing that kind of design even more so. So when you look ahead, what are you most interested in, or do you have anything on the horizon that you're building or that you're looking to next that you can share?
We're always looking at new projects with Proper House Group. So I think when the opportunity presents itself, we try to keep a pipeline of folks that we're stay in touch with and are talking to, and making sure we can stay a part of the growth. I think on the Nugentek side, AI, like we said, is very hot. Things are always evolving around. I mean, technology is always changing, and so staying up on top of that is sort of par for the course there. And the software business, which we didn't touch on too much, but that runs kitchens for restaurants, and so I still get to interact with customers around the country that own restaurants, and there's a lot of things happening around labor efficiencies and operational and compliance and the things we do there. And so I enjoy building that software and roadmap and talking to customers and iterating is kind of like that product manager role. I still very much enjoy putting that hat on too. So
like to stay in touch with your nerd side.
Yes.
I think, and it must make, I won't say easier, but it must make, kind of the relationship a little bit more real when, your clients realize that you're also an operator.
Definitely.
Like, okay, he's got the same hat on that I do. He understands it from a different perspective and not just a technology perspective. Like, you lived it, you're in it every day. And so you have you just kind of have an edge, right?
Yes.
To that world.
From a sales perspective too, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just one of you, is that how we're the same?
Like, I get it.
Yeah.
I do it every day. That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, and across everything that you're working on, what does creating a place mean to you in all of that?
Just making it, it's that hospitality and being that welcoming space, and that's whether we're creating our workplace or building a culture or building a physical space in a restaurant. And it's a very emotional, thoughtful. I mean, it takes years to when you're standing in a unfinished shell of a building, and then being in the actual space. I think again, if somebody hasn't been through that process and understanding it, it's I don't know if you can appreciate the level of care and detail and pain.
Daunting.
And pain.
The beginning and yes,
through.
getting on the other side of it, and it's all throughout it all, right? Like you're saying, it's the experience, and it's how the people in the space are gonna experience that, and through space and time, not just the physicality of it, but what happens in there. So I love that. Well, I really appreciate, the approach that you have in the business and across technology and hospitality. I love how you are combining them all together, and you really made a great space for yourself, and a career and things that you love doing, which I think I can fully appreciate. And it's clear that you're not just about growth, you're about the community, and we thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you were able to join me today. And it was a great conversation, and appreciate you sharing. If there's anything else you want to share, you're welcome to. But
no, I think all good. And same thing for you from community. I think it's important to give back to what to the city that has given so much to me. So I think that part is very important to me too. So yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Love this area, Tampa Bay, all sides of it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Chon.
Thanks
That was great.
Hey, friends, if you enjoyed today's episode, please join in the conversation at CREATE+CO Podcast on LinkedIn or Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe. We're so glad you tuned in to Create a Place, and look forward to seeing you next time.